In today's news, legislation is coming to the BVI to stamp out corruption in public affairs, and the BVI is now set to receive just about 8,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine from the United Kingdom next month.
As well as a new traffic change alert in the Road Town area, as well as a historical land sale takes the East End Longlook community one step closer to having a social home. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
Hey BVI, it's 2021 and guess what? We are kicking taboo to the curb. Let's face it, the world lacks conversation. So, we are bringing you homemade cocktails, thought-provoking topics, and nuggets to rock your world. A show that promises to keep it fun, frank, and fresh. So, come on this journey with me. This is Keeping It Candid, conversations for the modern world.
Welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, January 13th, 2020, and we are coming to you live straight out of the British Virgin Islands. I am Kyla Kenisha Forbes.
And my name is Javon Wilson. So thrilled that you can join us for another episode of 284 News. Now, as per usual, lots going on the local, regional, and international scene. One of the things we're excited to report on today is legislation. We have some legislation coming that promises to stamp out corruption at government levels within the public service. And we do know that the populace of the BVI has been really calling for that to ensure that there is reform in public service and that we are also holding persons accountable in the process. Additionally, we see 8,000 vaccines set to reach the BVI next month. That's by the end of February. This, of course, was procured by the United Kingdom government in their commitment to us as British Overseas Territories. And on the international scene, the House has voted today to approve a measure calling for President Donald Trump to be removed from office through the 25th Amendment following last week's deadly Capitol attack. However, Vice President Mike Pence has made it very clear that he has no plans to invoke the 25th Amendment. As a result, as we speak, House Democrats are now voting to impeach Trump, charging him with incitement of insurrection. Additionally, law enforcement agencies are on high alert as they continue to investigate that Capitol riot last week. The FBI is now warning that armed protests are being planned around the United States leading up to the inauguration. Kyla.
Very, very shocking news over on the international scene, but also in today's newscast, we'll be covering a new traffic change right here in the Road Town area. I'm not sure if our viewers have noticed as yet, but viewers, we have videos for you to help you navigate that new change, as well as a land sale in the East End Longlook area. Over 20 years in negotiation, and now we see where that is over and done with, and the government is moving forward towards a social home. So we have a lot of that. But viewers, let's just jump right into this new traffic change. Now, the motorists of the Virgin Islands are being informed of a new traffic change in the Road Town area, especially on Waterfront Drive. Now, Javon, as you may recall, back in June 2020, the government of the Virgin Islands, led by the Ministry of Works, implemented a traffic turnaround initiative in an effort to make the territory's capital more pedestrian-friendly and to reduce traffic congestion in the town area. And then as recent as December 2020, a third lane was established on Waterfront Drive in the effort to ease the traffic congestion further, as persons would normally stop in the road to drop off pedestrians or would be stuck in the lane trying to make that diversion to turn onto Admin Drive. Now, motorists are being asked to be aware of a new change implemented on Waterfront Drive. Now, as you head towards the traffic lights on Waterfront Drive, we're driving up the road, viewers, and motorists can now access 3 lanes. Now, 2 lanes are dedicated to the traffic heading eastbound towards the roundabout, with the third lane for motorists turning right on Admin Drive. So viewers, you can see that we are approaching the traffic lights, and now there are 3 lanes going in that direction with the next lane being designated to turning on admin drive. So that is very, very important, as that lane is on the further right. That is a change that you have to pay attention to. But now, viewers, as we know from the previous changes, we can see now that motorists on Administration Drive heading eastward will turn left in the lane provided, and then motorists that are turning eastbound, as in the video, could turn right on the lane. Now, we can see all those changes. So viewers, I hope that is a bit easier for you to navigate that change. Change is always a bit hard to get accustomed to.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to the motorists of the Virgin Islands, I've had to learn a few or quite a lot of changes recently, but everything in time. And with proper instructions, I think that could be very easy. And of course, proper signage. There's signage all over the Rotown area to help you navigate these new changes and to be safe on the roads, of course.
I know coming into office, Honorable Kai Reimer was adamant about dealing with the traffic congestion, and that is another issue we've been really talking about for quite a number of years. Have we dealt with it in the past effectively? Maybe not. So we're very happy to see Honorable Kai Reimer really sticking to his word. And when you think about, Kyla, the fact, like you said, changes, it's not always the thing that we want to embrace, but
Right.
it's necessary at times. And it's been just about 20 years since we've adjusted navigating changes on the roadway. So I'm very happy to see that. And like you said, I think with some adjustment and, of course, us paying attention accordingly, we'll be able to adjust.
I agree. I think change is not always bad. And I think these new implementations in the Rotown area is very, very good. I think we're looking very spiffy. We're looking innovative and new, and I'm definitely loving the changes as a motorist myself.
And very effective too, because we can all admit, while it's taken a bit of adjustment, especially at the roundabout area in Rotown, nevertheless, we have seen less and less traffic as time goes by. Now, viewers, as we move on, the government of the Virgin Islands has now introduced a draft bill for the integrity in public life legislation. Now, the proposed legislation promises to, quote, buffer corruption in public affairs, end of quote, and government levels, and of course, provide promotional opportunities based on integrity within the public service. Now, anti-corruption legislation has long been called for here in the Virgin Islands as members of the populace continue to call for transparency and accountability. Premier of the Virgin Islands and Minister of Finance, Honorable Andrew A. Foy, said, and I quote, by reducing or eliminating corruption in public affairs, citizens get better value for their tax dollars. Anti-corruption legislation gives a higher assurance of fairness and that investors or contracting companies will not be frustrated or extorted. He went on to say integrity legislation demonstrates the maturity of people to ensure their governance is conducted according to the highest standards. When governance is conducted with integrity, it helps the people to have confidence in their government, the Premier added. Now, viewers, under this new proposal, public servants will also have fair opportunities to move up the ladder in corporate workspaces. According to the benefits listed, the integrity in public life legislation and codes of conduct provides an objective framework for shedding light on allegations of misconduct by public officials and also applies to appointments and promotions in the public service. Senior public officials are prevented from abusing their powers to interfere with appointments and promotions as well. Now, in addition to all of this, Cabinet also decided that the Premier's office will lead this initiative. As a result, the Deputy Governor will harness information to assist in the public service sector aspect, while the Premier's office will pool information from all other sectors like statutory entities, boards, and elected officials, among many other pertinent areas. Now, while most residents, of course, this is refreshing news for, I guess, most persons in the BVI, others are strongly calling for the legislation to be enforced once it is passed. One resident said, and I quote, insist this is implemented and enforced with penalties at all levels, regardless of affiliation. Far too many have voiced valid concerns without anything being done as a result of who knows who, who's related to who, who has something over whose head, etc. A library of laws for display without enforcement is pointless. And Kyla, a very, very, very valid point. I think that is the sentiment being echoed, because in the past we have passed legislations. We have put in place the necessary laws that supports mechanisms and really works against a lot of the illegal activities in our community. But has it been enforced? Has it been enforced? And I think that is the primary concern here. Yes, we see the government pushing for anti-corruption legislation and ensuring that our public servants are able to progress and move up the corporate ladder. But again, making sure that it's not a situation where, you know, you are given this opportunity because I may know you or you may know me,
right,
but instead because you are rightfully deserving of that opportunity.
Great legislation, but I think passing a legislation is one thing, but enforcing it is another. And I think that residents, their concerns are very valid. I think we see it a lot in the Virgin Islands, unfortunately, but I'm much hoping that it is not just passed, but duly enforced.
Absolutely. And we do see this, especially with a transition of government. Usually we see once a new government steps into power, they wipe the slate absolutely clean. And so we want to ensure, again, that it is enforced. Agreed. Because that level of transparency and accountability is much needed in public service, and I think at all levels here in the BVI.
Most definitely. Now, viewers, still ahead, the BVI to receive doses of the COVID-19 vaccine in February from the United Kingdom. 8,000 doses, that is. Viewers, you don't want to miss this. This is 284 News, and we'll be right back.
The win! Oh!
What the hell?
I'm freaking out!
Is time.
284 News.
Coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
What's poppin'? What's really good? What's happening? What's happening? What's up?
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, on we go with the newscast. His Excellency, the Governor, has now announced that the United Kingdom will donate and deliver 8,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines to the BVI next month. That is February, of course. Now, this announcement follows the commitment made by the United Kingdom government last year to provide all overseas territories with COVID-19 vaccines. BVI will be receiving the vaccine developed by the Oxford University and AstraZeneca, which was given regulatory approval by the United Kingdom Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency on December 30th of 2020 after a very rigorous and detailed scientific review by medical experts. It has already been rolled out to thousands of individuals across the United Kingdom and is favored for its simpler storage requirements compared to other vaccines. Now, the government of the Virgin Islands, viewers, will be responsible for managing the rollout and the distribution as well of the vaccine while it hits the territory. And health officials are currently working on plans on how to most effectively do this following a visit from Public Health England to discuss plans back in December. Now, current advice from the World Health Organization and Public Health England states that as many people as possible should take the vaccine. It will be offered on a voluntary basis here in the BVI. Now, throughout 2020, the United Kingdom provided more than $1.4 million worth of medical equipment, including test kits, ventilators, protective gear, laboratory supplies, mobile isolation units, and a new testing machine that has given the BVI the capability to run real-time PCR tests in the territory for the first time. This is not only enabling the BVI's medical professionals to respond to the virus, but also building the long-term capacity of our local healthcare services. Now, Governor Jasper had quite a mouthful to say on this, and viewers, of course, you can get the remaining of that story via our 284 Media website, but he is very happy about the contributions and hoping that persons in the BVI will not be afraid of the vaccine. Now, Kyla, a few things to go over when it comes to this specific vaccine. Based on what we know from the international scene. So far, we've had 3 vaccines that were being considered and approved by several entities. We had Pfizer and Moderna.
Yeah.
Those 2 were approved very early on with a 95% effective rate, and I think really speaking volumes to our ability to combat this virus. But something to note very importantly is, one, the cost of these vaccines, and secondly, the storage requirements for these vaccines. So with Moderna, you're going to pay just about $20 US per shot and $37 for the Pfizer vaccine. Both vaccines, the Pfizer vaccine is required to be stored under very strict conditions. So you must store this vaccine in extremely cold conditions. And then we have Moderna being able to be stored in a regular condition. But nevertheless, when it comes to AstraZeneca, which is the one that is being procured for the BVI, 3 things. It is less expensive. It can be stored in regular storage conditions in a refrigerator for up to 6 months. But at the same time, it is not as effective as the other 2 vaccines. So the big question is now, yes, 8,000 vaccines are being secured for the BVI, but as a population, are we comfortable with going ahead with AstraZeneca, especially since it has not been approved by the FDA?
That's a big deal. That is a big conversation. Probably the biggest conversation we will have to have. But now I think another conversation that we have to look at, 8,000 doses for a population of over 30,000 persons. And I think now is the time, February is right there, to have the conversation as to, will you take this conversation? Will you take this this vaccine? Who will qualify to take this vaccine? Will it be a first come, first serve basis, or are some persons going to get priority? We cannot wait till February to have these crucial conversations. Firstly, to start with, is this really the one to move forward with without the necessary approval?
Well, that's the question we have to continue to pose to the government and of course the members of the population. But based on what we've been hearing so far, the persons who are most vulnerable, those are the persons who will be receiving the vaccine. That includes the medical professionals, the elderly generation, and persons who are prone to respiratory diseases and so on for now.
Most definitely. Now, as we move on, just last week, the government of the Virgin Islands made substantial steps towards the building of a social home in the Long Look area, where persons with no place of abode can take shelter. It was reported that after 20 years of negotiations, the government was able to complete a deal with landowner Mrs. Maltina Waldron. Our news team reached out to 7th District Representative, the Honorable Natalia Whitley, for his comments on this historical milestone. Listen into what he had to say.
Handing over the check to Maltina Waldron for compensation for her land in Long Look, which she has now made available to the government to build a social home, was a great source of pride for me. We have plans of using that land to build a shelter for those who have lost their homes or who may not have a place of abode. It has certainly taken a long time, 20 years. I investigated and I could find no good reason why this transaction had not moved on much more quickly. The only thing I can conclude is that it was not a priority. But we are certainly grateful and thankful to Mrs. Maltina Waldron for making this land available, and we look forward to great things coming out of this land for the people of the 7th District.
Now, Javon, this is a very, I think, a crucial milestone and a crucial step towards what can be something that is very great for the community in the Long Look and Easton area. I think a social home is something that's definitely needed in the territory as a whole. But we do recognize that in those areas, there are persons who are in need of that shelter. Many persons are now sheltering at the Stickit. And I think this would be a crucial step towards getting persons a proper home, a proper shelter, a proper place where they can get themselves back on their feet. So I'm very happy to see that after 20 years, the government was able to close such an amazing deal towards something that can be so amazing. Now, the Honorable Vincent Wheatley, Minister responsible for land-related issues in the territory, Honorable Carvin Malone, the Minister responsible for social development, as well as Honorable Andrew A. Foy, of course, our leader of government business, were all credited for making this historical transaction that is a reality. So we're definitely happy here at 284 to see this moving forward as we go.
Absolutely. And not only a place for them to essentially have a home, but receiving the necessary help, help that they need, whether it's mental help or whatever those needs are, of course, being able to address them. And like you said, get them back to a place where they're able to eventually reintegrate back into the community and be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Viewers, still ahead, the government is to consider a two-tier approach as it relates to diversifying the economy, a conversation we've been having for months, especially in the midst of COVID-19. So we're going to get into all the details of that as recommended by Mr. Jeremiah Fretz. So stick with us. You're watching 284 News.
Is business slow? Cash flow down? Hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back. Now, Kyla, we've been having a conversation about diversifying the economy for over a year. But I think once COVID-19 hit, we saw the dire need for the BVI to not move away from tourism and financial services as its core necessarily, but also find additional ways of generating revenue, especially in the areas of food security. Now, recently appointed Acting Financial Secretary Jeremiah Fretz has suggested that the government of the Virgin Islands implements a two-tier revenue committee and special expenditure committee in support of its goal of diversifying the BVI economy and developing new industry opportunities. Mr. Fretz said that the two-tier revenue committee should consist of government agencies, departments, and ministries comprising the first tier, while the second tier will be a consortium of business people representing various sectors of business industries with the mandate of creating new revenue streams from current and new industries, and of course, and strategies as well for improving the current revenue streams and their efficiency. Now, the acting financial secretary said, and I quote, "In order for the territory to be able to sustain the economy and remain in surplus budget, the BVI must streamline expenditure with a view of becoming more efficient and use best practices in cost-cutting and saving measures, including centralization of purchases and other best practices solutions that are currently being practiced regionally as well as internationally," end of quote. Now, Mr. Fretz further advised that a special committee be formed immediately to inspect, review, and recommend measures for increased efficiency in the recurrent expenditures of the BVI. Mr. Fretz was appointed earlier this month and replaces outgoing Financial Secretary Mr. Glenroy Forbes. Premier and Minister of Finance Honorable Andrew A. Foy, while speaking on Mr. Fretz's appointment, said, and I quote, "I am pleased to say that Mr. Fretz has hit the ground running and is full of enthusiasm and ideas. 2020 has reminded us with a very powerful way that diversification is something that we cannot no longer postpone, end of quote. Now, viewers, the Ministry of Finance is committed to providing strategic, economic, and fiscal leadership that promotes the sustainable development of the Virgin Islands. Now, Kyla, we have been talking about this for quite some time. I'm really happy to see that incoming Mr. Jeremiah Frett is able to recognize the importance and the need for us to create and put together committees that can adequately deal with the current needs of the BVI, but also making decisions that can catapult us into the future as a strong territory. One of the things we've been always examining the BVI in general is self-governance. How do we get ourselves to the next level? How do we ensure our financial autonomy moving forward? And I think it's very important for us to include, like Mr. Frett says, not only members and effective members of the public service and public sector, but also equally members of the private sector whose businesses have been affected, whose revenue continues to contribute to the economy, and recognizing the importance of everyone coming together to ensure that the BVI is in a better place coming out of this pandemic.
As you said, I think everyone have been talking about how can the BVI diversify the BVI product as an economy. Having the conversation is one thing, doing it is the next. And I'm very happy to see Mr. Frett hitting the ground running. I think Mr. Forbes was very right to say so, because I think his words are very important at this time, to see someone within his capacity saying, hey, this is something that we definitely need to do. Not just saying that we need to do it, but this is a first step as to how we are going to do it. So I'm really hoping to see very soon something substantial where we can start moving forward to diversifying our economy. And now, viewers, before we head out, we have this last story for you. But we see over in the United States of America, now anyone flying to the U.S. will soon need to show proof of a negative test for COVID-19. This is what was said by health officials in the United States, and they announced that on Tuesday. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention requirement expands on a similar one announced late last month from passengers coming from the United Kingdom. The new order takes effect in just 2 weeks. COVID-19 is already widespread in the United States of America, with more than 22 million cases reported to date, including more than 375,000 deaths. The new measures are designed to try to prevent travelers from bringing in newer forms of the virus that scientists say can spread even easier. Now, the CDC order applies to U.S. citizens as well as foreign travelers. The agency said it delayed the effective date until January 26th to give airlines and travelers time to comply. International travel to the U.S. has already been decimated by the pandemic restrictions put in place last March that banned most foreigners from Europe and other areas. Now, viewers, you can read more on this story on our website, of course, at 284media.com. But this is a very big deal for much persons across the territory. We have seen where the U.S. have took quite a relaxed form of protocols when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic in general. But we're seeing where they had to hit 22 million to start to really buckle down on what is really going on.
Well, Kyla, at 22 million confirmed cases and 375,000 deaths, not only that, with their resources completely overwhelmed as it relates to the hospitals, the equipment exhausted and all of that, it is about time that the United States revise their protocols. Not only that, when we think about our connection, and I'm speaking about not just the BVI, but the region to the United States, it's definitely a very close connection. So in order for us to move forward as a region, the United States of America has to heal from this virus. So we're just trusting that with these new restrictions, things will start to get better. And hopefully that guarantees a faster bounce back for us here in the region. Viewers, that is all the time we have. But again, check us out on 284media.com. But for now, I'm going to say a goodbye. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes. We will catch you again tomorrow. We are 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news. Good evening.